the closing keynote by Niels. So I will give a quick introduction because it will take over an hour to talk about Niels. So Niels is an independent international product development coach and expert in optimizing organizational management, project, and team performance. Niels has over 45 years experience in designing electronics and software systems. He started in Philips Electronics, then he started his own company for 20 years, leading an electronic systems design company. And since 1998, he started his consultancy and coaching company, helping projects to deliver quality on time, quoting, delivering the right results at the right time, enabling customer success. So since 2001, Niels taught and coached well over 400 projects in 40+ organizations over the world. And he's been speaking at different conferences and delivered different keynote speaks. So I pass it to you, Niels, and thank you for participating in the conference.
Neil, we've lost your slides. They're back again.
I must say that Zoom does do quite a good job in reconnecting.
Can you move to the second slide?
Yes.
I think
I'm going off and on. Anyway, so this is not that important. I can try to talk about this. Wright already said this. Yeah, and I help organizations to quickly become more effective, more efficient, more predictable. And sometimes, if I get the chance, I love to design some electronic products, which I did since my birth. But what I'm trying to talk about is quality on time, the right things at the right time. So thinking about the importance of time. I heard that already. A lot of what I've heard in the previous talks resonated with what I'm going to tell. Importance of time. Do some project or some work, it is to get some benefit, right? Yeah. So return on investment is the benefit minus the cost of doing the work. That's what most people think. But they forget the cost of being late. So every day you're later, you don't have the benefit of that day. And the cost of not doing something yet. So somebody has an idea, and then we wait and wait until we start the project. But every day we do nothing before we start the project will be done a day later. Again, not having the benefit of that day. And we'll do a calculation. In order to overcome this, we need the business case. Why are we doing this? So my question is, when I start with a team, often the question is, do you know the cost of 1 day of delay? And then they say, well, things take time. I said, okay, unnecessary delay. Yeah. And then usually they say, I don't know. So we can ask, and that's an exercise here. You can use it in the chat. Yeah. In the chat, we can say, what's the cost of 1 day of delay? What do you think? And you can put a question mark there. What's the cost of 1 day of your team? Do you know? What's the cost of that 1 day of you? And be careful, that's not what you get. What you get is peanuts. Yeah, because you cost a lot more. All the environment around you, your computer, the villa of the boss and things like that, all has to be paid by your work. Yeah. Now, then, what is the benefit of your work? if the benefit, let's assume it's 10 times the cost. 10 times? Well, if you have a better number, use that number. So my question is then to the team, how can you make decisions if you don't know this? So one day I was sitting with the team and I asked this question, what's the cost of 1 day of delay? No clue. And at that moment, through the window of the conference room, I saw the boss just passing by. So I opened the door. I said, boss, they don't know the cost of 1 day of delay. They don't even know their cost. Do you know? He said, I also don't know, but I'll find out. And an hour later, he came back. He said, these guys cost about 400 euro per day. I said, okay, 400 euro per day. 5 people sitting here, that's 2,000 per day, and not counting me, of course. Cost of delay, 10 times 2,000, 20,000. From that moment, these people made different decisions in their work. And you can think about this then. Yeah. Well, if it's 5 times, and if it's 1 time the cost of your project, yeah. I mean, not every project really produces good results. So the project that does, as your project, of course, should pay for all the other. So take 5 or 10, whatever, but it's still a huge sum of money for every day. Most people have no clue. So time is usually much more important than budget. So I was working at a voice over IP introduction project, a telecom company, and they were talking about introducing voice over IP because the competition was starting the same. So I was in a room of 2 product owners, and the product owner of the project I was working with had to go away for a moment. And the other guy came to me, Niels, now you're here, I have this problem with my project. Yeah, we have to introduce voice over IP, and 2 people have been preparing this project for months, and they say it will cost 10 months times 4 people, around a day, 4K. That's what they said. Yeah. But the people said we can save 4 months by doing it. You know what the business said? For use 4 people. So that's more than the business. The product owner didn't like that concept. And also these 2 people, they said, give us 2 more weeks to show you why it is very invest 200K. And the project owner said, no, wait, 2 weeks. Okay. Just start working. I asked this product owner, what's the benefit of the project? What's the benefit?
Sorry, Niels. The voice is a bit lagging. So if you could, distorted a bit. Sorry.
There's an option that we can try to continue because it should take too long, or we go to some 10-minute wait. It's up to you.
I think we can have a wait until it's fixed, so we can start it, so we can get the value of what you're presenting, if you don't mind, please.
Can you wait?
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, people can download the PDF of these at conferences, and there are many links on this presentation. How to deliver quality on time, the right stuff at the right time. Who am I? I coach teams to deliver better results in less time. Simple. And often that's project rescue, because if people feel no problem with the project, usually they don't ask advice, and only if they are in big trouble, they may ask, can you help us? And then if that's the last day of the project, there is not much we can do. But if there are a few weeks or a few months, we can do a lot. besides of that, I'm an electronics engineer by birth, so I love to also design electronic products, which of course makes me eat my own dog food. I use, very shortly, I deliver quality on time. I help people to deliver quality on time, the right result at the right time, whatever that is. And of course, we have to know how to determine that. So the importance of time, yeah, assume we have an idea, and then it takes time before we start the project, and then we do the project, and then we may have a benefit. Yeah, so the return on investment that normal people think happens here is the benefit of doing minus the cost of doing. However, every day you are late, you will miss the benefit of that day, right? And every day you do nothing before the project, the result will be a day later, and you lose the benefit of that. So the business case is important to know what values we are talking about. The benefit of doing, the cost of doing, cost of being late, which is similar to the cost of doing nothing yet. So what I ask if I go into a team, the first day I ask several things, and one of them is, what's the cost of 1 day of delay? And I usually, they say, well, things take a certain amount of time. So I say, okay, of unnecessary delay. So what's the cost of your, usually they don't know. And I ask, what's the cost of your team? I don't know. What's the cost of you? I don't know. Well, and if you don't know the benefit, assume 10 times the cost. So this is my suggestion, and we can try that again. I didn't see it in the chat because of the confusion just a moment before. But if you can put in the chat anything about your team or your work. Yeah, what do you think the cost is of 1 day of delay, being unnecessarily late? And if you don't know that, what's the cost of 1 day of the team? What's the cost of 1 day of you? And then take some multiplier and calculate the cost of 1 day of delay. So when I was explaining that to a team, of course, they didn't have answer to these things. And through the window of the conference room, I saw the boss passing there just. So I opened the door. I said, boss, they don't know what they cost per day. He said, I also don't know, but I'll find out. And an hour later, he came back. He said, 400 euros per day. And they looked at me. I said, that's not what you get. That's what you cost, including the car and the villa of the boss and all the other stuff. Yeah. So, okay, well, the value doesn't have to be very exact. This is very useful because now we can say, okay, we have 5 people here. 2,000. Cost of delay, 10 times 2,000, 20,000 per day being late. From that moment, people make different decisions. Now you may think, why 10 times? Well, about 10 times. If the project doesn't give a big benefit, why are we doing it? But if you don't believe this, you can use 5. That's okay. It's still a lot of money. So the numbers don't have to be precise, but whatever you calculate here, it is sufficient to make the people in the team suddenly realize what a day cost. They never did that. So there was a voice over IP project, a telecom company. All the competition was starting voice over IP, so they also had to do this as quickly as possible. And they had 2 people who studied what to do for that. And these people cost about 500 a day, so 20K spent on preparing the project. And then they said the project will take 10 months times 4 people is 400K. Okay. And I was just, there was a guy, a product owner talking about this to me because the other product owner that I was working with just left the room for a short moment. So I said, Niels, while you're here waiting, this is my problem. Yeah, because these two people who prepared the project said, we can make it much shorter. We can save 4 months by investing 200K. And you know, the business said, we are not going to spend these 200K because 4 months times 4 people is only 160K. That's what we call the bean counter. So, and he said, I don't like that. But the guy said, okay, we can study 2 weeks more, yeah, to research the benefits so we can explain better to the business why they have to do that. Yeah. So, and that cost only 2 people, 2 weeks, 10K. But this product owner said, Niels, I don't like this. Something is wrong here. So I asked the guy, what's the expected benefit? Remember business case, what's the expected benefit of this project? He said, about 16 million per year. Okay, so 2 weeks extra doesn't cost 10K, it costs 620K. And saving 4 months brings not 16 divided by 3, 5 million extra. Oh, he said, he ran to the business, spend that 200,000 and start. Yeah. So time is usually more important than budget of the project. Similar to that, I was in Japan with the director of an R&D of a semiconductor company. And he said, Niels, I hear you help projects to do a better job. Can you explain something about it? I said, well, let's take a typical project of your people, of your research people. He said, well, we have short projects of 4 weeks where they do some experiment or find something out. I said, okay, so this is about what you expect. Yes. I said, the first week, how much work have they usually done? He said, well, about 10%. I said, what do you tell your people then? Well, in Japan, the boss is always right. So he says, you must work harder. I asked, how much harder? He said, I said, well, that's easy calculation. Remember that most people don't know how to do mathematics. Yeah. So 90% left, 3 weeks left. So they must work 3 times as hard as they did in the first week. And the next week, they have to work 4 times as hard. And the last week, they have to work 7 times as hard. And then I asked the guy, how much time do these projects typically take? He said, well, about 8 to 10 weeks. I could have told you. Yeah, these things are so simple, but people, yeah, have strange ideas. So now, what can we do about it? And I have several processes. One of them is the timeline process. How do we know that we do and get what is needed when it is needed? Standard projects, they calculate everything we think we have to do with the people we have, add something extra, and then all is done, right? Well, the problem is that the deadline usually is a little bit earlier. Yeah, if we don't have the product at Christmas, we don't need it anymore. Yeah. Then, well, nowadays we have agile. Yeah. So agile is doing our best to deliver working software. And deadlines, that is project management stuff. We don't have deadlines. Okay. Who's paying your salary? So my approach is, okay, if the deadline is here and if it is now, this surely will be done, this surely will not be done, and this may be done, because estimation is not exact science. And if what surely will be done is not enough to make a profit, then we can kill the project now instead of 3 times the budget. Right? It is better to have 80%, 100% done than 100%, 80% done. But let it be the most important 80%, because the customer couldn't care less about the bells and whistles that nobody actually asked for, or they asked for but didn't need. Okay, Now, let's first see what is the ultimate goal of what we do for our salary. Delivering the right result at the right time, wasting as little time as possible. Yeah, the right result, the quality, little time as possible, on time or earlier. Yeah, I make it a little bit longer, providing the customer with what they need, which is usually not what they asked for, at the time they need it, which can be earlier or later than they say, to be satisfied when they want to pay, and to be more successful than they were without it. More successful than before, because if they're not more successful than before, why would they pay? Right? But customers king, but we are not slaves. That must be win-win, constrained by what the customer can afford, because usually what the customer wants, they cannot afford. Yeah, build me a Rolls Royce. You say you want to go from A to B. Yes, I want to go from A to B. Can you spend 100,000? Huh? Oh, don't make a Rolls Royce. Give me a Volkswagen. Yeah. So what we mutually beneficially and satisfactorily can deliver in a reasonable period of time. How about this as the top level goal of what we do? Please improve if you can. So, and talking about at the time they need it, which can be earlier or later than they say, we have now, and we have some deadline when they need it. Then what we think we have to do is much less than we still have time. We can just start working. If what we think, the time we think we need for the remainder of the work just fits, well, we're already in trouble because usually it takes a little bit longer, right? And if we already know it takes longer, yeah, then the first time I made this picture, this third bar was beyond the fatal date. Then I moved it up because if the match is over, you can't score a goal. So we started too late. But failure is not an option. The question is, what are we going to do about it? And a very important concept there is starting deadlines, because many people look at a final deadline. Now, if you keep looking at the final deadline, you're sure that you get over it. Yeah, we have to focus on starting deadlines. And the starting deadline is the last day we can start to deliver by the delivery deadline. Because every day we start later, we will end later. And hopefully, from now, there is some space to move the various things we have to do, because we can't do everything at once in parallel. So starting deadlines, counting from the deadline back, and then hopefully there is time from now till the starting deadlines to organize a good order of things. And this is an example how we did that on a whiteboard. I love doing this on the whiteboard. Yeah, there was of the parking system was some deadline that we wanted to have an integration of the payment machine, electronics, mechanics, front panel, and things like that. Yeah, and so many weeks, and then we design not just the product, we will design also the order of things with the people we have and the things we have to do. Yeah. Actually, the project manager, when this was on his whiteboard, he said, I want to put this in the computer. I said, why? Because I have to go upstairs to show to management. I said, why do you have? Yeah, I must make nice PowerPoint slides to show it. He said, well, can't they come down? Huh? I put some chairs in front of the whiteboard and I said, you call them. 5 minutes later, they were there, and I was sitting there for managers. And they explained the picture that we made together. And they said, oh, you're in control, continue the good work. And they left. I said, did you want to spend time to put this in your computer? You can make a photo. Okay, how to be on time. And we can do the exercise in the chat again. I see nobody is using the exercise in the chat, but okay, I'm not waiting for that. So are your deliveries usually on time? And some people say, yes, they're on time, but then the quality is compromised. Managers said, that is the deadline, you have to deliver, don't mind the quality. I said, no, if there's no quality, if it's compromised, that's not on time. You didn't deliver. What we deliver simply works. Now, it may be not exactly what was needed, but that's why we have the feedback loop. But basically it works so that the stakeholders can react and not get stuck by bugs, but they can react what they actually meant. So how can we save time without compromising quality? And I found 7 options. The first four options are the deceptive options, intuitively so strong that every project uses it. That's why in the previous presentations we saw all these things why projects fail or get late. So first, deceptive options, hoping for the best. We know it doesn't fit, but we hope it will. Well, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. Or we have to be successful, therefore we go for it. Well, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. Working overtime, anybody working overtime from time to time? Working overtime, never ever work overtime because you're fooling yourself and your boss or your customer. Because normal work already makes you tired, make a certain level of mistakes. If you work overtime, you get more tired, you make more mistakes, and in the end, you only work overtime to repair the mistakes you made because of working overtime. Therefore, never ever work overtime, so that once or twice a year, you have the energy to do it when it is really necessary. Moving the deadline. You've heard about Parkinson's law, people spend the time available. Okay, if you move the deadline, you have more time available and it will be spent. Student syndrome is actually the same thing. Yeah, people start as late as possible when the pressure of the fatal date is really felt. Remember, I was saying, don't look at the fatal date, not at the deadline, the end deadline. Look at the starting deadline. Fifth option is adding people. Yeah, we will be late. Open a can of developers, open a can of engineers, and we go faster. Well, we know better, but the idea is, again, intuitively very strong. If you take 2 people, it takes, in 6 months, it takes, you can do it with 4 in 3 months, and with 5, or with 6 in 2 months. Yeah, intuition, people times time is constant. That's the myth of the Mangmans, as Brooks already showed. Adding people to a late project makes it later. Even adding people to a project may make it later. Because Larry Putnam, he measured projects that already were done, so they couldn't tamper with the numbers anymore. He took 500 projects of similar size and different team size and found that the cheapest project is about 2 people. The fastest project is 3 to 5 people, but it's only 20% faster. Therefore, apparently, it is still, it's only 20% faster. So apparently that's the economic optimum because time is money. We just saw that in earlier slides. And then, of course, we have here the 9 mothers area where some managers say if you take 9 mothers, you can make a baby in 1 month. Yeah, so some things just take a certain amount of time. You can't do it faster. Remember the starting deadline. And if you go beyond 5 to 7 people, the project explodes because you have more people and they take longer. Now, how do we design an airplane? Well, probably you get bust. Yeah, only a few companies have managed with extra work, with projects that take longer and longer, etc., to still succeed to build airplanes. But only because the competition had the same problem. So the 6th option, so the 5th option, adding people, is dangerous, but sometimes you have to do it, but you have to understand and work with Brooks law. You can't go against it. You have to deal with it. So sixth option is the low-hanging fruit. We don't have enough time, but we can save a lot of time without negatively affecting the result. In the efficiency in what, why, for whom we do it, doing the right things and not doing what later proves to be superfluous. Half of what people do in a project later proves not to have been necessary. If you find that after the work, the time is already spent, if you imagine that before the work, you can still decide not to do it. Efficiency in how we do it, doing things differently. The product not in the first way we always did it is the better way. The project, how to organize it better. Continuous improvement, plan, do, check, act. And efficiency in when we do it in the right order. Some people start with the simple things, and then there is a moment that they have to work on the more difficult things. And then once the more difficult things have been done, it turns out that the easy things still were easy, but had to be done differently, wasting time. So doing things in the right order. And time boxing, which is more efficient than feature boxing. Remember, Parkinson's law, feature boxing is waiting until it is done, means no deadline, people spend the time. Time boxing is giving, of course, time boxing must be reasonable, so you learn how to make the time box so that you are efficient. But there are many things we can do to save time and still have the good result. Number 7 is not a slide, it's killing the project now instead of after 10 times the budget. And have you heard about this one? Continuous elimination of waste. So the secret weapon is PDCA, and I know that Tom will immediately say that it is not PDCA but PDSA. That's why I call it also the Deming cycle. That's what he always want to do. Yeah, I don't mind how you call it as long as we do it. And actually, and I'll show that in the slide, the story is a little bit more than just PDSA. So doing is what we do all day, right? And pull do is the intuitive cycle. What's the next thing we have to do? We already do it. What's the next thing? We already do it. What's the next thing? We already do it. I can't call it plan, I call it pull. So pull do is the intuitive cycle. Now, if intuition would be perfect, everything we do would be perfect, right? Not everything we do is perfect. Therefore, apparently, intuition sometimes points us in the wrong direction. So instead of pull, let's plan. And the planning is what to achieve and how to achieve it. And then we have to carry out the plan, which is already difficult because the plan must be doable and we must follow the plan. But assume that we did that. In a check, or call it a study phase, we can say is the result according to plan and the way we achieved it according to plan, the product and the project. And then comes the act phase. What are we going to do differently in the next cycle? Because if we don't do anything differently, the result will be the same. If we ever want to improve, we have to do something differently. But be careful. If you do everything differently, you don't know which elements of what you changed was contributing positively and which negatively, although the sum could be positive. So this is actually the main thing that usually we forget to do. What are we going to do differently the next cycle? Because people plan, and in the back of their mind, they feel that the result could have been better or so, but they are so busy. So actually it is plan, do, check, plan, do, check. How about doing the act? And that's the one that we have not to forget. Now, Deming, this is a picture from the transcript of somebody writing down what Deming told Japanese top management in 1950. You can see that the person writing this down didn't understand very well 1, 2, 3, 4, just 4 quadrants. But anyway, That's the original picture, and that is not Plan, Do, Check, Act, not Plan, Do, Study, Act. It's design, manufacture, sell, and survey. And in his book, Out of the Crisis, this is the picture. You don't see PDSA. You see this picture, which of course has this loop. But again, actually, if you read the book from Short, you recognize that it's just a short cycle, what he was explaining, and he was honest about that. He didn't call it a Deming cycle, he called it a short cycle. Yeah, you, to the best of your knowledge, you design, you produce, sell it to customers, and observe what they're doing with it, and you design and redesign based on your feedback. So again, I don't mind how you call it as long as you use it, because it's a secret weapon. If you start randomly, yeah, with this, you very quickly can find out what the best product is and the best way to do it. So I start with a team doing this every week, and after some time it becomes just a way of life. So an important thing is, many people think that higher quality costs more. That's bullshit. Well, after a long time working very well in improvement and whatever, it could be that higher quality costs more. But until we are there, quality costs less. Half of what we tend to do in our work later proves not to have been needed. If we see that after spending the time is already wasted. If we see that before we spend the time, we still can decide not to waste the time. If we save time, we have more time to do the right things right. So doing things wrong costs about 3 times or more as much. Because first you do it wrong, then you have to find out, and you have to do it right. 3 times as much as 1 time doing it right the first time. Simple, quality costs less. Now, we know we are not perfect, and that's why we use Plan, Do, Check, Act, to learn where we are not yet perfect in delivery quality. And then it costs less and less, optimizing the product and optimizing the way we do the product quality on time. Now, all this thinking led to my toolbox of things we can do. Plan, Do, Check, Act, business case, requirements engineering. What are we going to improve and what not? Quantification. Architecture and design, selecting the optimum compromise between the conflicting requirements, because requirements are always conflicting. Different stakeholders have different requirements. Better quality, budget. Yeah. Early review and inspection. That's what I learned when I met Tom. And then I added to that the planning technique, the weekly task cycle, the bi-weekly delivery cycle, and timeline. Weekly task cycle, well, that's coming here. Actually, zero defects attitude, and you can see the link to the video for zero defects, because just a year ago, I had a webinar at BCS about how to move towards zero defects. So the business case is, why are we doing it? Requirements engineering, what, how much, and stopping criteria, are we done? Architecture and design is how we do it. Early review and inspection is check and learn as early as possible. The task cycle is to improve the efficiency of what we do. The delivery cycle is the effectiveness of what we do. And timeline is to see what will happen. And you know, most projects get late. So usually if you make your first timeline, you will see that it will happen too late. So the most important sentence that comes after that is, what are we going to do about it? Because failure is not an option. And there is so much we can do. The right result at the right time, quality on time. Now, I saw this picture in one of Tom's slides, and I thought that's an interesting thing, because that's the quality part. What, why, for whom, how much are we doing? And he also showed some example there. High security, 99.9% detection. And we have suggested solutions. and we can think how much impact, remember impact estimation table from Tom, this solution, how much can that impact? We estimate that it can move from 90% to 95%. We do it and we measure, it was 91%. And we learn from that. And then if we are not yet there, we can decide to add more solution or maybe improve another quality first. So this is the quantification Tom is talking about. And suddenly I realized that actually I extended this quantification concept to the planning. On time, organizing the how and the when. So to get this solution, what do we have to achieve? That is the solution there. What should we do to achieve that? What should we not do, not to waste time? We estimate how much time we need. We measure the time actually, and we learn from that. And we have this. So actually, I use the quantification not only for the product, but also for the project. And this is the quote Tom almost said, but I said, just wait, because I'll show it. Yeah. The fact that we can set numeric objectives and track them is powerful, but in fact, not the main point. The main purpose is to force us to think deeply and debate exactly what we mean, so that others and ourselves later cannot fail to understand. So many people, especially agilists, they don't like estimation because we cannot estimate. We cannot precisely estimate. Well, an estimate is never precise, it's an estimate, etc. Blah, blah, blah. So they don't know what estimates are for. Then very quickly, because Tom already explained that, but this is the way how I very simply try to give the concept of language, where we have the definition field, like the requirement name is speed of luggage handling at the airport, scale the time between arrival of airplane and first luggage on belt. But you see the fuzzy brackets. What is arrival of airplane? Ever flown Ryanair? You know, the moment the plane touches the ground, da-da-da-da, again on time. And then it takes another 15 minutes before you're at the gate. So, fuzzy brackets, this has to be solved before we can use this requirement. Meter, measure arrival of airplane, measure arrival of first luggage on belt, calculate difference. Does anybody already see some issue with this meter? Well, won't wait for the answer. It's better to measure the arrival of last luggage, because you know what happened with this. Actually, they took one bag, put it on a car, went there, put it on the belt, boom, succeed. And then it took half an hour before the rest came. So again, fuzzy brackets, we have to think, is this right? Okay, that's the definition. Then the benchmarks is the playing field. Before we make the statue to put it in the park, we have to know which kind of park it is and how it should fit in the park. So in the past, we achieved the handling, speed of luggage handling in 2 minutes, minimum 80 minutes average, and 83 minutes was the worst case. Current level with a competitor in January did less than 4 minutes. But it is a wild rumor, because we don't even know who said it. We don't know where we can find who said it and what he said. Record is like an Olympic record. That is very difficult to match. So apparently there was a competitor in January 2018 who managed to have it in 57 seconds. Well, not even a reference. So again, probably some strange story there. And the wish is what we would like to see, but not necessarily in this project. The CEO in his New Year speech of 2021, he said, I wish that the system in 2022, in Q3, is less than 2 minutes. Okay, now the playing field. And now come the requirements. And Tom likes the word tolerable. Some people use fail. I don't mind. If you don't match this, you fail. So you can use it tolerable or fail. According to the service level agreement, in 99% of the cases in Q4, less than 10 minutes. Any problem with the requirement? Which year? That's the first thing the team said. Yeah. Another example, according to the service level agreement, in any case, not more than 15 minutes. And now we have already more information. Heathrow Terminal 4. Because a different terminal can have different circumstances. And the goal of this project to improve things, according to marketing, is less than 15 in 99% of the cases in the second quarter, less than 10 in the third, less than 5 in the fourth. Just as an example, how to very simply use this. And the interesting thing is, writing it down this way, even the CEO can understand and follow. And don't be afraid to put the wrong numbers in here, because they will tell you. If you ask for the requirements, you don't get anything. If you give requirements like this, and the number is not right, they will tell you. So somebody said, requirements must be smart. So when I heard that, I checked at internet when I came home, what was smart. And then, of course, these are smart: specific, measurable, attainable, realizable, and some say time or traceable. Well, they're both. So that's the requirements part. But now I want to focus again on the time part, because for the requirements, you also can listen to Tom, and we heard a lot about that. So focus now on delivery. The weekly task cycle is quantifying the way to get there. How much time do we have available? 2/3 of the available time is the plannable time. If you plan 100% of your available time, you will fail every time, because everybody goes to the loo, drinks coffee, does planning, helps each other, all the other things, little interrupts that happen anyway. So if you don't plan for them, they still happen, and you will fail every week. So we decided, let's take 2/3, and that turned out to be a very good number in most cases. Then we think, what's the most important thing to do? How much time do we need to do these things? And how much time does fit in the net plannable time? And what can and are we going to do? And what are we not going to do? Yeah, but this also has to be done. I know, but we now already know 1 week before that we won't make it. Yeah, but this one is more important than that one. Okay, you swap, no problem. But don't promise yourself to do more than you can do. Within 2-3 weeks, people learn to be way more efficient using this technique. It's so actually easy. Is it that simple? Yes, it is that simple. So we write it down, because don't keep it in your mind. Do you have a plan? Yes, I have a plan. Where's your plan? In my mind. No, write it down. And then you are the first person who sees the issues with your plan. And then other people can help you with the issues with your plan. Nobody can see in your mind, nobody can help you. So what we are trying to do is to make the best use of the limited available time. After the work, the time is already spent, and before the work, we can decide what's really important, what's less important, what we must do, what we can do, what we're not going to do, what we're not going to do. So first plan, instead of finding out later. We can't change history, but we can try to improve the future somewhat. How are they connected? Task feed deliveries. So we are working this week on this delivery. We're working on it, and the next week on the next delivery, the next on the next delivery. And this can be a little bit tricky, because a delivery gives feedback. Now, if the delivery gives feedback to the task we didn't do yet, we still can decide to do the task differently as we thought. But if the delivery shows that the things we already did for later deliveries was wrong, time wasted. Just as a warning, don't start too early with deliveries that take a little bit longer. So an example, I was working the parking system. It was a very interesting project. Normally I work with projects only 5 to 10 weeks, and then they can do the drill. But here I stayed 3/4 of a year, I think. And they said, you are the QA manager, you can come in anytime, us asking or not asking, and you tell us what do you see that we could improve. That's a nice job. So they said, we have not only a team in Eindhoven, but we also have a team in Antwerp. And they always deliver not very predictable. So I love to make timelines, line on the whiteboard, tuck, 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 tuck. In this case, days. So the Eindhoven project was going to deliver to stakeholders every Friday, every 2 weeks. Okay. And then we said, okay, maybe it's then good that the team in Antwerp delivers to the main team in Eindhoven a few days earlier so that they can put it there and make sure it works well together. Okay, now this was our weekly task cycle. And because you know by now that I can talk a lot, and that was accidentally Wednesday morning. So we said we don't have 40 hours anymore, we have 36 hours. Take 2/3 for 24 hours plannable time. So Serge, who was the team lead of the group in Antwerp, several people, he had already planning because he was not just leading, but also doing work. So he added it up and I said, Serge, you should also do some management by walking around, going around your people, see that everything goes well. He said, oh yeah. How much time do you need for that? He said, 3 hours. Okay, 3 hours. And then adding it up, accidentally, these were real numbers. Yeah, it was 24. Okay. Now Gregory came in. And he already prepared his list. He said, these are the things I have to do to deliver to the main team. And I said, and he knew that I was going to say that. 42 hours, you cannot do 42 hours in 24 hours, right? Yeah, but I can work a little bit harder. Well, don't work overtime because you're fooling yourself and your boss. So what are we going to do about it? I said, these 6 hours here. How about those? Yeah, that's some draft design and a finish of a design. I said, which design? Yeah, he said, I don't know yet because the Eindhoven team still has to tell me. Okay, how do you know it's 6 hours plus 6? Yeah, it usually is. Like I said, that's nice, but if you don't even know what it's about, you won't do it this week, right? Yeah, okay. Getting in the direction, but still, we won't succeed and failure is not an option. What are we going to do about it? Okay, he said, well, I already talked with Jerome. Jerome is working on another stream of this project, and Jerome has been working with XML a lot, and I struggled with it in the past week, starting to use it. So I would need about 4 hours each, and Jerome said he could do it in 3 hours each. So we asked Jerome in, and Jerome said, yeah, we already discussed this, and therefore I can do that. We didn't put zeros for Gregory there because he still had to talk with Jerome and take it back into his result. But now we were at 24, so there was a chance that it would work. Okay, so I left, it was here, and they started working. And in this Friday, I went to Eindhoven to see the result. And Serge was also there. And Serge was beaming because it worked. It simply worked. They never delivered so successfully. Now, can you imagine what would have happened if we wouldn't have designed this delivery? We don't only design the product, we also design the way we deliver it. You see, quantification, just like Tom always says. So every week we are reflecting to learn, plan, do, check, act, but more and more pre-reflecting. Yeah? Reflecting is see what we have done that we shouldn't have done, time already wasted. Reflecting is what kind of work are we going to do that we shouldn't do so that we can decide not to do it. So every week we think first reflecting, was all planned work really done? If some work, and these are not tasks that are given to the people, no, these are tasks that people define themselves to contribute to the success. Yeah. So if a task was not completed, we learn, was the time spent but the work not done? Maybe it needed more time. Was the time not spent because we did other things? Yeah. So we can learn from this and think, what can we do with this learning? And what you see here is we do very simple metrics that we immediately consume. We don't put metrics in databases. I had been coaching a project in the US, and when I came back a year later, the quality man said, Niels, I have a database full of numbers, all these estimates and real time. I said, Doug, sorry, I'm not interested. Every week we consume these metrics of this week, and then they lose their value. They are used. So don't put metrics in databases. Use them for immediate improvement. And then any tasks that weren't completed, we decide what the tail of the task is, and we put it on the candidate activity list, because maybe the tail is less important than some other things we should do. And then it is good that we stopped. And then we continue with planning the task for the next week, like we did a few slides before. So an example. In a project in Manchester, UK, and John was a designer, front-end designer, and this was his plan when he came in the first time. Okay, a week later, what was real? This. Interesting. Some things were done. If the estimate was 3 hours and he actually used 3 hours, we don't waste time on it, especially when they were done. That is quite a discrepancy. The interesting thing is, we thought 5, we know it's 13. What did we think before? What do we know now? And how can we learn to improve our estimation? And as I said, within 2-3 weeks, people learn to estimate sufficiently accurately to complete most of the work. Okay, so this is the task cycle analysis, reflecting. And then we came to the planning for the next week, using the learning. He said, I'm going to do these things. I have to do these things. And yeah, you know, my reflexive, I see this number. That is more than 26 hours. So what are we not going to do? Because failure is not an option. I said, yeah, but there are 2 teams waiting for this stuff. And if I don't deliver, they get problems. I said, okay, let's invite the team leads of these 2 teams. So I invited the team lead of team X, and we asked her, what do you need next week? And what could be postponed a week? She said, okay, this I need, and that I don't need immediately. We did the same with the team lead of team Y. And guess what? The number came to 26. I don't know why these numbers always come down to the right number, but that's whatever. So he did his work, and guess what? The next week, everybody was happy. So how to organize this? We have a weekly 3-step procedure. Expensive word, forget the word. Yeah, because some people say all this preparation costs a lot of time. Yeah, we don't have that time. I said, well, after some observation, I found that this takes 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. 1 hour per person. Is that much? Guess what we saved? Yeah. So we try to do with less people what we can do with less people, just to have efficient results. So people can individually already think, what is the most important thing I'm going to contribute to the goal of this delivery? Yeah. So during the week, people conclude their current tasks. They think what to do next, how much time they have available, and how much they think they need for doing that. Then we have the one-on-ones, not yet with the team, one-on-ones. I start with that as a coach, but soon I try to get colleagues of the person to do it, so they challenge each other doing the right things and not doing the wrong things. Yeah, and then we do as I just showed. First, the status: what happened in the previous week? What do we learn? What is it really most important? Yeah, you check the things that are listed there. Who's waiting for that? I don't know. Well, if nobody's waiting for it, how do we know we do the right thing? How do we know we're done? Who's paying your salary? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, feasibility, commitment, and decision. And then we have the group meeting where everybody says, and we put it usually in an Excel sheet or in a very simple tool where people say, okay, Albert, I'm going to do this. Next person, Louis, I'm going to do this. People say what they expect they're going to do. And the interesting thing is, I call it the synergy effect, that then people can say, but that you can't do because, or for that, you need me, and I don't have it on my plan. So then we can modulate the plan instead of generation, because generating the plan individually, yeah, and then here having the plan, that costs more than modulating. Generation costs more than modulation. Yeah. If you ask what's your plan, they have to think a lot. If you already have a plan, you can think about, is this the right plan? So again, why is this important? Task cycle planning is not just planning the work for the coming week. It exposes issues immediately before we waste the time. Half of what I keep repeating, half of what people do in their work later proves not to have been necessary. And if we see that before, we can decide not to do it or to do it differently. So another combination from timeline or to delivery and to task cycle is you have some fatal date of your project. And if that is more than 8 or 10 weeks, we make a horizon. Because looking further than that horizon, probably things will change based on feedback. So the more detailed we do that, the more we waste the time. So we just decide to have a horizon. And the horizon, if that is 8 to 10 weeks, that is 4 to 5 delivery cycles. And why is it not a one delivery cycle? Like in Scrum, they have only the sprint. Well, when I started talking about deliveries with the teams, they found it not so easy. Are we doing things in the right order? Is this the right thing to do now in this delivery? So we decided to take several delivery cycles so that we can optimize the order of things over this. Yeah. Once we have done that, we have a definition, a goal for the first delivery. And then if the delivery is 2 weeks, I use a delivery time of 2 weeks or less. Don't let things rot on the table when it's already ready for customer feedback or stakeholder feedback. So, but the interesting thing is with 2 weekly task cycles and bi-weekly delivery cycles is that halfway you have a moment to think, are we going to make it? And if we're not going to make it, how are we going to make it? Because failure is not an option. So then delivery one is a horizon, then task cycle is a horizon, and then we do our task cycle planning. What are we having to do to achieve what we should achieve in this task cycle. And then we already can calibrate, because if we only can do half to achieve half what we should achieve going from the top down to this task cycle, we already can calibrate, well, if we only can do half, the project will take twice as much. How do you know? Well, that's the only information we have, right? And after we've done the week, we have even better numbers. And after 2 weeks, we have even better numbers. So we learn to calibrate our prediction very quickly. So we go from top to bottom and from bottom to top, up and down, up and down. Does that take much time? No. An example of a timeline, I don't know why, but they did it so nicely, and I was there for a longer period of time, the parking system. And they already, before I was there, they already had an architecture phase, and then the phase, the validating the architecture, realizing an initial system, and the final system. The initial system was to be at the fair in Amsterdam, where these companies show their traffic systems. And this fair is there every 2 years. So if you're not there, you lose 2 years of sales potentially. You're not being able to show this to the world of traffic systems. So that was a very important deadline. Accidentally, it was the 1st of April. Okay, so, well, they had this on the whiteboard, later made this nice picture of it. They called this the very similar system, the basic overall system, rich overall, blah, 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 exhibition feature cut off, exhibition ready to be at the exhibition. And underneath, they put there what they expected to be there in these systems. I couldn't show that because that's confidential. But the interesting thing is they already had some hunch of this 10-week cycle. So 10, 11, 13, 11, 8. So very useful, and they use this. But the interesting thing is, after a few weeks, I saw they did estimations, because they have been making parking systems for years. They know exactly what elements there should be. So 3 people, I saw them sitting there doing estimates. These are the things we have to implement. So many days, so many days, so many days. Yeah. So these course estimates you don't do in hours, you do in so many days, so many days. They added them up and they said, well, remember my picture of the deadline, and now it seemed to fit easily. So they didn't have to prioritize, they just would start working and start delivering, and they would be on time. But after a few weeks, I saw, because they put these numbers in their computer, I saw that, wow, it is going to take twice as much. So I told them, yeah, but the first months we have to start working, and there were new people coming. Next month, everything is better. You know what happens in the next month? It was 4 times as much as the original estimates. That's not a problem. That's not bad estimation, but it meant that by the feedback, we knew that they forgot a lot of elements in their estimates, like doing the project management, like doing the testing, like doing whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I went to the R&D boss. I went into his office. I closed the door. I said, Wim, I'm not leaving this room until you know what's going on here and we know what we're going to do about it. So it took some time looking in the system, and suddenly he said, wow, yeah, it's going to take 4 times as much. So he summoned the project manager of the software and the architect of the software, and they were sitting there. He said, we're not going to be on time, and we have to be on time. What are we going to do about it? That's the big mantra. What are we going to do about it? So they discussed, and they started to prioritize, and because they were very clever people, they had a great exhibition with a system that worked very well. Again, guess what would have happened if we wouldn't have done this exercise? So we have heard about project management. We have seen these checklists and all good advice and all these things. But when I was talking about this way of working in a previous webinar, somebody said, Niels, now I see it. Something is lacking in project management education. Execution. Yeah, it's nice to have a lot of theories and good advice, but how to operationalize that? And I think that's what I have done. So, right result, right time, quality on time. No excuse anymore. Sorry, if you're still there, you have no excuse anymore, because now you know that delivering quality on time is not really difficult. I showed some examples how to do it. There's no excuse anymore. If you're not sure, you can ask, contact me. From now on, just deliver the right result at the right time. No complaining or excuses. Every time I hear complaining, and it's always complaining about them, not about us, of course. Yeah, they were delivered late, and no, we took the responsibility. We are responsible. We deliver. Failure is not an option. And anytime you hear anybody complaining, use the mantra, what are we going to do about it? And the interesting thing is, the moment you say that, what are we going to do about it? They're clever people. They immediately come with suggestions. And then we say, okay, which ones are we going to do first? So you can read a lot of booklets on my website. And how to deliver quality on time. You don't need excuses, because there is a way to do it. That was my talk.